Arttu, and this video is about interpreting instructions. When you write an essay at university, you need to clarify to yourself from the start what is expected of your text. Your teacher has most likely given you instructions that explain what you're expected to do and what criteria the finished product should meet. These instructions are referred to as essay guidelines or style sheets in the academic world. The essay guidelines usually also inform you of what type of essay you're expected to write. Should you only describe something, for example, or should you try to persuade your reader of a particular point of view? The essay guidelines often also say something about how the finished product will be assessed and how it will be graded. Making sure that you understand the essay guidelines and that you follow them carefully can help you reach a better result. In fact, many students who fail their undergraduate writing courses do so because they haven't read the instructions or they haven't fully understood them, and they end up writing an essay that may still be a good essay, but it just isn't the kind of essay they were expected to write. An essay that only describes something or tells the reader what happened or who did what won't be enough for a passing grade if the instructions state that you need to present an argument and defend it on the basis of evidence that can be examples, statistics, references to other people's work, and so on. So, let's look at some common types of information in essay guidelines. In addition to telling you what kind of an essay you are expected to write, descriptive or argumentative for instance, the guidelines usually say something about the expected length of the essay and about the layout, that is, what the finished essay will need to look like. So this means there will be information about things like the minimum and maximum number of words, font type, line spacing, margins, and text justification. The essay guidelines often also specify if you need a separate title page or not, and if you need to write a short summary of your essay in the form of an abstract. So, when you plan for your essay, you need to check for these things and make sure that you get them right from the start, and that you have a good idea of what the finished product will need to be like before it can be passed. You of course want to be able to focus on the contents of your essay when you write. It is a good idea at this stage to also learn the functions of your word processing program, so that you'll be able to format your essay document according to your teacher's instructions from the start. That way, you needn't come back and fix things like type font and indentation and margins later on when you edit and proofread your text. This will save you a lot of time at the end of the essay process. This may seem like a small thing, but it's actually not at all uncommon that students who haven't written a lot of essays before are unfamiliar with how their word processing program works. We've seen a number of times how, instead of the tabulator key, a student has used a space bar to indent their text. This may look fine in their own computer screen, but when someone else opens the document, the indentations look totally messed up. Fixing this manually at the end of the essay process takes a lot of time, and it will also make you very stressed, because at that stage there are so many other things that also need to be taken care of. And did you know, by the way, that there are a few issues that non-native writers of English need to be extra careful with when fixing the formatting of their essay document? Quotation marks, for example, may look different in different languages. So when you write in English, you'll need to make sure that you set your word processing program to English language, so the quotation marks will look the way they should. Another thing that essay guidelines often provide information about is the expected structure of your text. Will you need a separate introduction, for example, and what will you need to do in the rest of the essay? There may be also instructions about text levels and headings, for example, if the text should be divided into paragraphs, or if there should be separate sections and perhaps also subsections, and what these paragraphs, sections, and subsections are expected to do and what they should look like. Should they have headings? Should they be numbered? Should you leave a blank line between them? And should you or shouldn't you indent the first line of each new paragraph, section, or subsection? As academic writing always draws on previous work, you will usually need to make references to previous work that is of relevance in your essay. The essay guidelines will usually tell you what reference style, for example APA or MLA, you are expected to use, and where you can find more information about this particular reference style. Just like with layout, you can save a lot of time later on by getting this right from the start, so you should really try to make sure that you understand the instructions and that you have access to the resources recommended by your teacher. Before we stop, I'd like to stress that the types of guidelines that I've talked about here, essay type, layout, text structure, and referencing style, differ between disciplines, and that it's important that you find out what requirements your own department has and what rules apply to each specific writing assignment that you get from your teachers. You also need to make sure that you understand the terminology used in the essay guidelines. In other words, what terms like indentation or flush left or full justification actually mean. You should always look up the meanings of words and concepts that you don't understand in a dictionary, so you can be sure that you follow the guidelines and don't make unnecessary mistakes. You may find it useful to write down some of the things that I've talked about here and use them as a kind of checklist while you're writing your essay.